realized that Garcia had the scene of the 2004 liquor store
That's what I'm
homicide
saying.
tattooed
That
on
is
his
crazy,
chest. It
but
clearly displayed the liquor store's facade and the surrounding area as
boom. What's up, guys? Y'all gonna see the title of the video. This one is by Be Amazed. I'm a subscriber to this channel, but somebody requested this one also. So this one is called The Dumbest Criminals Who Got Away With It Then Didn't. So let's check this one out, guys. Hope you guys enjoy this, all right? Boom. Let's get it.
Today, we're going to look at the felons that were foolish enough to
Don't forget to go to
hire
the
a
channel and
hitman
subscribe,
on
okay, guys?
Craigslist,
You guys are
steal
into
a
stuff like
penguin
this.
from a zoo, and
What?
post their own
You
mugshot
stole a
on
penguin?
Facebook as we check out the dumbest criminals that got away with it until they didn't.
Yes. I've heard some dumb stories, like
Fake friends.
fake
We
friends,
all
okay?
know a social media addict who can't go a day without posting about their lives. But in some situations, being terminally
My friend told me a
online
story
can land
about
you in
someone like
serious
that.
trouble. Back in 2009, a con man called Maxi Sopo went on the run after stealing $200,000 by committing bank fraud in Seattle, Washington. He did this by convincing his friends to lie about their income so they could acquire loans for expensive cars. But instead of actually spending the cash on the luxury vehicles, they fraudulently used it to fund a trip to Las Vegas instead. They
Well,
said
mother
what happens
said,
in Vegas stays
stays
in
in
Vegas.
Vegas.
But Sopo didn't stay in Sin City for long, as when he discovered the authorities were investigating his crimes, he decided to go and hide out in Cancun, Mexico. However, instead of laying low, Sopo started
Still going partying.
clubs and
I
boasting about
knew
his
it.
lifestyle on Facebook as he uploaded pictures and posts about his escapades. The post revealed he was in Mexico, but Sopo's location was set to private, so the police couldn't figure out exactly where he was. That is, until the criminal made the dire mistake of sending a friend request to a man he met at a party, who turned out to be a former U.S. Justice Department official. The police spotted the former official on Sopo's friends list and recognized him, so they contacted him to explain the situation. He then confirmed that while he had no idea Sopo was a fugitive, he had met him in Cancun. This led the cops to Sopo's location, and the fuzz finally
Sopo,
found
you're
and
gone.
arrested their man in 2010.
You're
Before
gone,
convicting
babe.
him of 4 counts of fraud.
Crime doesn't pay, bro.
Ultimately, Sopo received a 33-month sentence plus a hefty $150,000 fine for his crimes. And
Motherfucker.
it's crazy that he was caught over a couple of Facebook posts and a seriously misjudged friend request. Oh, how the mighty have
Has
fallen.
fallen.
From living La Vida Loca
Yeah, yeah.
to lying in a lockup.
That is crazy.
Hijacking
Man.
history.
The hell is he not even gonna get that
Working
money
as
from the
an academic
pit
is
at all?
prestigious, intellectual, and boring. So in 1997, a Civil War expert and New York State Archives employee called Daniel D. Laurello decided to spice up his life by turning to crime. Laurello started stealing historical artifacts at work and selling them on eBay, and his loot included a letter from 1823 that was written by the former Vice President John C. Calhoun to a general
wow.
from New York. Calhoun
Nice.
served under the presidents John Adams and Andrew Jackson, so the artifact is a pretty special piece of American history.
I mean,
And
I
in
bet.
2008, Laurello sold it for just $1,700. But ultimately, Laurello was the one who paid the price. See, a former history teacher called Joseph Romito found the eBay listing and instantly recognized the letter. He knew that it was supposed to be held by the New York State Library, so it was obvious that the person selling it on eBay, aka Laurello, had stolen it. In hindsight, attempting to sell stolen artifacts to history nerds who know everything about them is pretty stupid, and Romito's discovery led to a full-blown police investigation. This uncovered that between 1997 and 2008, Laurello had swiped over 1,600 rare books and documents right under everyone's noses.
What?
Unsurprisingly, he was promptly arrested, sentenced to up to 6 years in jail, and slapped with a $125,000 fine.
Bro,
But
how
the
you all
authorities
plan
were
on
only
paying
able to
this?
recover 90% of the materials that he'd stolen and sold. So it looks like Laurello will go down in the history books too, as his actions have caused over 100 of New York's
action has
precious
consequences.
artifacts to go missing forever.
That's
Dumb
some
defense.
consequences, man.
When I was a kid, I told my Auntie Ethel that her cooking was too salty, and since then I've learned that once you say something, you can never take it
You're
back.
back,
But
yeah.
while I got a dressing down for my aunt, in 1985, a criminal called Dennis Newton had to face the full force of the law when he misspoke while on trial for armed robbery. Newton was suspected of robbing a convenience store in Oklahoma, and when he went to court, he thought it would be a great idea to do away with lawyers and represent himself. At first,
Why
he
would
was
you do
arguing
that?
his defense pretty well, but when the manager of the store testified that Newton
Seriously,
was the thief, the
why would you
criminal
do
broke
that,
out
Dick?
in a rage and shouted, "I should have blown your head off." A shocked
What?
silence settled over the courtroom, and as Newton realized he'd just admitted to his crime, he lamely added, "If I'd been the one that was there." Talk about turning yourself in. Following his outburst, all bets were off, and it took less than half an hour for the jury to sentence him guilty and recommend a
You're gone.
30-year sentence.
You're not gone.
To be honest, I'm surprised it took that long. Hitman wanted. Personally, I've only ever used Craigslist to sell some unwanted furniture and hire a handyman. But in 2008, Anne-Marie Linscott from Grand Rapids, Michigan posted a seemingly innocent advertisement on the site offering freelance work that concealed a criminal request. When 3 people responded to Linscott and asked her what the job was, she explained that she'd pay them $5,000 to, quote, eradicate the wife of a man she'd fallen in love with. See,
Holy
Linscott
crap,
had an
Dick.
affair with a guy called John back in 2005 and fell for him, but he left her to go back to his wife. So
I mean,
Anne-Marie
that
turned to
usually
Craigslist
always has
to
happened.
violently and permanently break up their marriage. Unsurprisingly, the 3 respondents immediately reported Linscott to the cops, and her post was all the evidence the authorities needed to charge her with 12 and a half years in prison for the intent to end life.
Yeah.
Man, publicly hiring a hitman
get
online
freaking
is
crazy, man.
unbelievably stupid. And
Right,
I
that is
still
stupid,
don't know
man.
what responses Anne-Marie was expecting to her request. Did she think an actual hitman would reply? Like, "Hey, I'm a professional sniper. DM me the address, and I'll eradicate whoever you want. XOXO."
Or you just kicking your feet in the butt.
Every now and then, it's fun to let
You
loose
again?
and have a wild night out. But in 2012,
I had to
Rose
say,
Jones
you
and
again?
Carrie Mules partied a little too hard and had a wild life night. When
Okay.
they got drunk and stole a penguin from the SeaWorld in Queensland, Australia. The Welsh tourists were on vacation when they drunkenly broke into the park and swam with the dolphin, set off a fire extinguisher in a shark enclosure, and finally kidnapped Dirk the penguin
In a
and took him
shark
back to their
enclosure?
apartment. Now, I've had some bad hangovers, but as the Brits woke up and found Dirk waddling around, they must have been filled with regret. They initially tried caring for the penguin by giving him bread and putting him in the shower, but eventually they gave up and abandoned Dirk under the nearby Southport Pier.
Mother
The duo
frizz,
would
just
have
take him
gotten away
off.
with it, but they posted videos of Dirk onto Facebook, which were reported to the police, so they were consequently arrested and fined over $650 each. The judge deemed that the tourists didn't act with malice, so they actually
Yeah, that's what I'm
weren't
saying.
convicted
Just
of a
take him
crime,
back. It's-
although
let him know
I
you're
don't
always
suppose
drunk,
they'll
bro.
be welcome back in SeaWorld anytime soon. And what became of Dirk? Well, he was eventually found under the pier before being returned to his enclosure and reunited with his girlfriend Peaches. Oh, I love a happy ending.
Baby, I was
No
kidnapped.
confession. Honesty isn't always the best policy, and sometimes telling the truth can ruin your life. Just ask James Washington, a 61-year-old inmate at Turney Center Prison in Nashville, who had a terrible heart attack back in 2009 while serving a 15-year sentence for attempted homicide.
Never
For
mind.
most people, going to prison and having a heart attack sounds like a worst-case scenario. But as Washington lay on his deathbed, he made his situation 1,000 times worse by revealing his deepest, darkest secret to a prison guard. The 47-year-old convict really thought he was going to die, so he confessed that he was the man who committed a brutal homicide that had gone unsolved since 1995. The investigation had been
freeze, man.
abandoned due to a lack of DNA evidence, so Washington decided to finally clear his guilty conscience. But to his surprise, he made a full recovery from the heart attack. And when his health started to improve, the authorities were able to charge him with the crime. Washington
Bye-bye.
tried to take his confession back after he survived, but the damage was done, and his 15-year sentence was upgraded to a life sentence of at least 51
Bye-bye.
years for the 1995 case. So when Washington was released from hospital, he returned to prison with no release date in sight, and he's still locked up today, all due to his honesty and the wonders of modern medicine.
Exactly. I mean, you told the
Paying
truth,
the
then you try to take it
price.
back. Like,
Graham
when you
Price was
find out you're
just a
not
boring
gonna
guy with a boring job until the
pass away.
58-year-old Englishman decided to break bad and steal $13 million from a bank.
A
See,
mother
this
flip.
real-life Walter White worked at a British bank called Halifax as a
That was a good
financial
show.
consultant, which is a fancy schmancy way of saying he provided financial advice to customers. But instead of giving genuine advice, he preyed on unsuspecting clients by telling them to invest money with him personally while promising that he could use his financial know-how to double their investments. Then he would spend their money on luxury vacations, new cars, and a serious gambling problem that primarily involved betting on horse races. When
Wow.
his investors started demanding their returns, he'd
Exactly,
use the
give me
money from
money.
his newer investors to pay them back like one big pyramid scheme. He took around $4.2 million from clients, and
What
when
the
this cash
fuck,
eventually ran dry, he started siphoning funds directly from Halifax, stealing $9 million more from the bank while he worked. Incredibly, he managed to run this operation from 2001 to 2004 without being caught. But one day, an auditor inspecting the bank came across a piece of paper tucked into a safe, and they found it was a handwritten IOU note from Price that openly stated he'd borrowed $9 million from Halifax. See, Price was so addicted to gambling that he truly believed he was going to win big and pay the bank back.
And I know
So
people
he
like
left a
that.
note in the vault to explain that he hadn't stolen the money, and he was merely borrowing it until he won. He'd hoped the
I
bank
know
would
people like that.
understand and let him off easy, but
Queen Elizabeth.
unfortunately, Halifax and the police didn't accept this explanation. So the piece of paper just acted as a confession, as Price was promptly arrested and jailed for 12
Gone.
years in 2005. Unfortunately, some of Price's clients never got their
Got their
money
money back.
and
You're
his
not gonna
scheme
get it back.
completely bankrupted them. But the criminal wasn't overly apologetic. He told the police that he'd been arrested too soon and he could have been able to pay it all back if he was given another week to bet on horses,
Wishful
as he
thinking.
definitely would have won. Yeah, sure thing, buddy.
Yes, he made an
Picture
educated guess.
perfect. Social media
An
is a
edu-
great way of connecting the cops to stupid criminals. Back in 2016, Donald Pugh was wanted in Ohio and Georgia for driving under the influence, vandalism, and arson. So it's fair to say he was in big trouble. But he didn't bother showing up for his trial in Ohio, which forced the police to release a mugshot of Pugh online and ask the public for help locating him. Pugh saw the post and he didn't think the photo was very flattering. So he decided to send a posed selfie to the cops and ask if they could use it instead. I'm sure Pugh thought his response was hilarious, but it blew up online
Okay.
and drew lots of attention to his case, so the cops soon started receiving lots of tips from people who'd spotted him down in Florida. This allowed them to track Pugh down and
Oh,
arrest him
you
on
gotta
board
be
with
joking me,
self-incriminating
man.
selfie. But Pugh isn't alone.
Nigga
In
self-snitch on
2016, a
himself.
Florida man called Mac Yearwood made a similar blunder after committing battery in the city of Stewart. When the cops arrived, Yearwood fled the scene, which prompted a manhunt. Then, as the police started investigating him online, they found that he'd updated his Facebook profile picture to an old wanted poster that revealed he had 2 other warrants for battery in Citrus County, Florida, around 210 miles away. So the police obtained Yearwood's address and tracked him down before arresting him for the crimes he committed in Stewart and Citrus County. Man, next
Dumb.
time you want to update your profile
Dumb.
picture, just go for a classic selfie. All is revealed.
Wow.
The worst kind of criminals are the ones who feel absolutely
no,
no
I got
remorse
these
for their
cars.
crimes. And this description definitely fits the Californian gangster Anthony Garcia. In 2004, Garcia committed a homicide against a rival gang member outside a liquor store in Pico Rivera. The cops had no leads and he avoided arrest for 4 years until he was
What the
pulled over in
flip?
2008 for driving with a suspended license. The police suspected that he was part of a gang called Rivera 13, so before letting him go, they took some photos of his tattoos, which is a
Rivera
standard
kills.
procedure used to document gang members and keep
They put
tabs
the
on
liquor on
them.
him,
These
right?
pictures happened to reach Detective Sergeant Kevin Lloyd, who'd been in the force for years, and when he started looking through them, he realized that Garcia had the scene of the 2004 liquor store
That's what I'm
homicide
saying.
tattooed
That is
on his chest.
crazy,
It
but
clearly displayed the liquor store's facade and the surrounding area, as well as the shooting itself. Garcia's nickname was Chopper,
They even
which is
had
represented
the
in the
fucking-
helicopter firing at the victim.
peanut guy
Furthermore,
getting
the
stabbed in
victim
the
is
head and
represented
they-
as the
mother
Planters
flip.
mascot, Mr. Peanut.
That's
which
what I'm
is a reference
saying,
to
bro.
the
Like,
fact
you
that
got the
Garcia
Mr. Peanut
being
on him.
insultingly called members of the rival gang Peanuts. It couldn't
That
have
is
been more
crazy,
blatant, so the
babe.
cops tracked Garcia down and interrogated him, which led to his arrest. After a short trial, Garcia was sentenced to 65 long years in
Oh,
jail and finally
65
received punishment
years.
for a crime he'd committed 4 years before. Man, I bet he regrets ever walking into a tattoo parlor.
Some
But hey,
to
at
be
least
some
his tat
choky
isn't as
looking
bad as
tattoos, but
mine. Dude, where's my
where's my bike?
When I was a kid, I stole my friend Rosie's favorite toy and felt so bad that I gave it back the very next day and burst into tears. But some adults don't have such a guilty conscience. And in 2013, a 57-year-old from San Francisco called Marquis Moore made it clear that he had no problem stealing other people's property. Marquis was, in fact, a serial bicycle thief who'd stolen 10 bikes and over 100
Serial
bike parts
bicycle
from
thief.
different owners before attempting to sell them online. In 2013, he found a buyer for a stolen bike on Craigslist and arranged to meet them at
60
Ashby
bucks.
Transit Station in Berkeley. But when he arrived, he discovered that he'd been tricked.
Yep.
See, one of Moore's victims had spotted his own stolen bicycle being sold on Craigslist, so he arranged to buy it and contacted the cops. They then arranged a sting operation at Ashby Transit Station, and as Marquis arrived for the sale, the police swept in to arrest him.
Come here.
Marquis faced
How you
charges
doing,
of
Marquis?
possession of stolen property, and he was held in jail with a bail fee of $105,000.
Now where you gonna
Marquis
get that
is
money
known as
from?
the Bay Area bike burglar. All because
The
he
Bay
was stupid
Area
enough
bike
to sell
burglar?
a stolen bike online without realizing he was selling it to the very person he stole it from. James and the
This is so
GPS.
dumb, man.
They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again
Yep.
and expecting
And
different
different
results.
results.
But I think it's the definition of stupidity, and in 2008, a criminal was dumb enough to commit the same crime over and over again, whilst being watched by the cops. See,
Mother
James Wombles
flip.
committed several burglaries in Miami County, Ohio between December 2008
Tongue
and
sticking on his
January
boot and everything.
2009, and as he got away with some stolen electronics and guns, he
But I
thought
don't
he'd
like
committed
thieves,
the
but
perfect
I do.
crime. But the cops soon tracked him down and arrested him in his car because Wombles had burgled those houses while wearing a GPS.
That's what I'm saying.
ankle
You want
monitor.
an ankle
See,
monitor,
prior to
babe?
these home invasions, he'd previously been caught and convicted for stolen property charges in Greene County, and afterwards he was fitted with an ankle monitor that tracked his movements 24/7. As a result, when Wombles went out and committed the Miami County invasions, the police could see that he'd visited all the crime scenes. Then they used the ankle monitor to track down his exact location to arrest him, and they found him sitting in a car filled with the stolen items, which gave them all the evidence they needed to sentence him to 10 years in jail.
Mother freeze.
Snapchat snitch. In the movies, criminals tend to escape from the cops with action-packed chase sequences that involve sports cars and explosions. So it isn't any surprise that when a criminal from Maine tried to avoid arrest by going home and hiding in a kitchen cabinet, he wasn't so successful. See, in 2015,
In a
Christopher
kitchen
Wallace,
cabinet.
no, not the notorious B.I.G., had been evading the cops for several weeks after committing a burglary when he decided to sneak back home and hide out there. However, he made the dumb decision to post about his return on Snapchat, which prompted one of his friends to snitch and notify the police. The cops showed up and searched the house, but they couldn't find him. Then, just as they started to leave the property, Wallace posted on Snapchat again to tell his followers that the police would never find him because he was hiding inside a kitchen cabinet. The cops received another call about the second post,
Tell
so
him
they went
that,
straight
babe.
back to the kitchen, found Christopher, and arrested him before charging him with burglary and throwing him in jail. Man, talk about a high-stakes game of hide and seek.
These dudes dumb, babe. It's like they want to be caught, babe, for some strange
I'll
reason.
admit,
That's what, I mean, that's what it
very
seems to me.
gullible.
They dumb,
I've
but
been tricked into
it's like
thinking
they want to
the
be
word
caught, babe.
gullible was written on the ceiling a couple of times. But hey, at least I'm not as naive as Alberto Lopez, a criminal
Alberto,
who
you're
walked straight
gone.
into an incredibly obvious trap that was laid by the cops. Back in 2016, Lopez was suspected of stealing $5,000 from the bank he worked at in Cottonwood, Arizona, but he evaded capture by skipping town and moving
Gone.
to Phoenix. After a year away,
$5,000.
Lopez got homesick, so he decided to move back to Cottonwood and apply for a job, hoping the coast was clear. This seems pretty foolish, and to make matters worse, the job listing he applied to was for a dispatcher with the Cottonwood Police Department. When the police reviewed his application, they conducted a background check
serious,
and
babe.
immediately discovered he had a warrant for his arrest.
You ain't
But instead
serious,
of tracking him down, they decided to have a little fun by inviting Lopez for an interview. Incredibly, Lopez waltzed straight into the police station in his best suit, and as he sat down to be interviewed, he was put in cuffs and arrested for felony theft. God,
This
I've
boy
had some
dumb
rough
boy.
interviews,
This
but
boy
at least
dumb boy.
none of mine
You
have
are
resulted in
dumb
me
boy.
being thrown in jail. True crime novel. Some true stories really are stranger than fiction, and the tale of the Polish author Christian Bala is so absurd that it's taken straight from the pages of a crime novel, literally. See, in
Wow.
2000, Bala started to suspect that a businessman had formed a relationship with his ex-wife, so he kidnapped him and committed homicide in a jealous rage. But Bala had clearly done his homework because the police found no leads and they dropped their investigation after 6 months. The case went unsolved for years and it looked like Bala had gotten away with the crime. But
Okay.
instead of lying low, he decided to become a self-published author and write a crime fiction novel called Amok that was based on the crime he'd committed. The book actually became a bestseller, and when a member of the Polish police force read it, they noticed the storyline closely matched the details of the real crime and the fictional criminal was called
Oh my
As
goodness,
they
bro.
investigated further, they found that the story also included details of the homicide that were never released to the public, which essentially proved that Christian had committed the crime. So Bala's own book reopened the cold case, and it was the main piece of evidence used by the authorities as they arrested Christian and sentenced him to 25 years in prison in 2007. I get coming up with ideas is hard, Christian, but next time you get writer's block, I don't suggest writing down your darkest confession and publishing it for the world to see. Shot
Hey,
in
I'm shit must have been
Chicago.
dark, bro.
With The
Must have been
Godfather,
really, really
The
dark what he
Sopranos,
did.
and Goodfellas, some of the most famous TV shows and movies of all time belong to the gangster genre.
Yep.
But the life of the real gangster John Dillinger is much wilder than any movie. Dillinger and his gang were active in the Midwest during the Great Depression, which lasted from 1929 to 1939. During these years, they were responsible for multiple homicides, robberies, and 3 jailbreaks, and he became so famous that he was dubbed Public Enemy #1. But surprisingly, the terrifying criminal was eventually caught in a pretty embarrassing way. See, in 1934, Dillinger was successfully hiding out from the cops in Chicago, but on July 22nd, he foolishly broke his cover to go watch a movie called Manhattan Melodrama, because
Wow.
he was a fierce fanboy of its starring actress Myrna Loy. Man, and here I thought Taylor Swift fans were devoted. Appropriately, the movie was about a lawyer who has to send his criminal best friend to the electric chair, and Dillinger was about to face a similar fate. See, one of his female companions had tipped the cops off, and after watching the movie and coming out of the Biograph Theater, the gangster found the boys in blue waiting for him outside. He began to run, but the feds took him down with gunfire and permanently ended his crime spree.
Oh, wow.
Lots of people believe that Dillinger's fate actually marked
Dead.
the decline of the whole gangster era, as the police went on to catch over 25 other prominent gangsters who had aided and abetted Dillinger. So Dillinger's decision to go catch a movie was a pretty terrible idea, and an entire period of American history arguably ended due to his infatuation with Myrna Loy. What an ego boost.
Wow.
Caught on camera.
Oh,
There
flip.
have been plenty of times where I've wanted to clap back at a mean comment on my videos, but so far I've managed to ignore Be Amazed Hater 99 and really think about what I put out on YouTube. But unfortunately, not everyone can restrain themselves on this website, and in 2012, a 19-year-old called Hannah Sabata successfully stole a car and over $6,000 from a bank in Nebraska before posting about it on YouTube. In a video entitled Chick Bank Robber, Hannah vividly described how she took the car and robbed the bank with a gun before showcasing the stolen money on camera.
Dumb.
She also said she was
Dumb.
going on a shopping
Dumb.
spree the next day, but she never got to hit them all because the cops saw the video, drove to her house, and arrested her the very next morning. Talk about rapid response. Sabata was ultimately
Dumb.
sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison for the bank robbery.
Dumb for doing
showing
it
the
and dumb
world
for showing the
exactly what
world-
you get for boasting about your crimes
Exactly.
online. In fact, the only thing that I approve of from her video was her mention of how much she liked the band Green Day. Although I
Wow.
wonder if her favorite song is American Idiot.
I'm
And personally, I'm glad all those idiots got busted.
But I'm
Tell
telling
me
you,
what
but
was
I'm
your
glad too,
favorite.
but
Let me know in the
that
comments
is
below.
crazy,
And
but
thanks for watching.
yeah, but anyway, man, hope you guys enjoyed this reaction. It was a request. I really enjoyed this, but that was dumb, babe. Like I say, crime doesn't pay. So anyway, if you guys enjoyed this, don't forget to go to the channel to Be Amazed and subscribe to the channel. And boom, on to the next one.